Hello, everyone. Today is May 5th, and we're here with another episode of the news. Government and, was it security? I instantly
Social
forgot.
media.
Social media. It started with an S.
That was a whole 15
Dang
seconds
it.
ago.
We're quarantined. We were going to do the news yesterday, but Disney copyrighted that. We'll talk about that in business tomorrow.
No, I think, isn't it in this section?
Is it?
And
think
it's
it
actually
was.
nonsense.
Oh, okay.
It's a social media story, but I felt like it went too far into the nonsense category.
It is nonsense, but
We also had a ton of stuff. It's going to be a long one today, probably. But tradition is to start with the FCC news. It's almost always bad. And most of
Sure.
the news is almost always bad, right? I mean, that's kind of the nature of the thing, right? Plus, that's what gets the clicks. But this week, we're starting with two really good news stories. Really good news. I don't know if we've ever had two good ones in a row before at the beginning.
But before that, we have to thank Linode.
Oh, also good news. We're getting some money.
Linode just launched its Kubernetes engine. So if you want to run Kubernetes, you get the Linode Kubernetes engine. It works really well. And actually, if your corporation uses Google Compute or one of the other commercial Kubernetes providers, and you want to have a talk with me about migrating, I can actually help you migrate your stuff. We use Linode for the Level1 text website we have for years. It's good service. It's a great price, a great product. So thanks to Linode for sponsoring this episode of the news. And there's an affiliate link below. You should check that out. You should also check out the Kubernetes engine thing because it's actually really awesome. They also have their other stuff that we talked about in the past, which is really exciting. But Linode, look, you're quarantined. Spin up Linode and get some new job skills while you're quarantined. It's fine.
For the job market that won't be there when you...
Oh no! See, I think that's the kind of jobs that are survived. It's like,
Yeah.
I can be the Kubernetes admin at home.
If you can work remotely.
Yeah,
You
well,
want to do that.
I think
So,
that
definitely.
I think you can. And also in the Level1 store, we have new stuff. But mostly we have a charity relief shirt about the thing that we can't talk about. So if you buy one of those, we're giving all of the money from that away. And a bunch of other YouTubers are doing that too. So
Got
yeah, I
yourself
think
a
we
chair
did
line there.
save the children
I
for our
went
charity
I went out for lunch and
today.
oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it has to be today. I hear that ice rattling around in there.
Yeah,
What'd you get?
a cherry limeade, a diet cherry limeade.
Did you eat at
Oh.
Sonic or did you just get that at Sonic?
Drive through, yeah. No, I didn't have Sonic for lunch. I just
Their food is...
it's really terrible.
Yeah, the food's not good. We got tendies yesterday through the drive-thru.
Where from?
Raising Cane's. I had to pick up a prescription while we were out. My husband was like, "Let's get tendies." I was like, scandalous.
Yeah, I realize that like drive-through food is probably one of the riskiest things you can do, but for some reason I feel fine about it.
Don't do it every day. Like, do it, and then wait for the incubation, and then if you're clear, you can do it
Well,
again.
if you're doing it every day, it's killing you in plenty of ways that have
Yeah.
nothing to do with viral strains. All right, well, on to the good news. And the first good news, I will temper it a bit by saying that, of course, nothing will come of this.
They're going to accidentally delete the whole thing.
Even if all of this came from his home IP address, nothing will happen. But at least we'll finally get a little bit of satisfaction. What was this, 2-3 years ago at
Yeah,
this point?
it's forever ago. The judge. Is it? Where's it? There it goes. Judge orders FCC to hand over IP addresses linked to the fake net neutrality comments. We've been commenting on this since day one, and the FCC is like, well, all these people that posted, they have a right to privacy, and the judge is like, these aren't real people. We've established that these aren't real people. What about the IP address? I think this is going to show something really interesting, which is all of these fake comments came from one or a handful of IP addresses, and the FCC could have trivially prevented this. And it's going to expose that, in fact, this commenting thing was not incompetence, but actually corruption.
Here's the million-dollar question. Did the FCC stooges have the presence of mind or even the know-how to run this through a VPN, or did they go raw?
No, I think they went raw because
They probably
remember the
went raw.
timestamps?
Is it from the FCC building?
That's going to be amazing. It's like the IP address is 192.168. That would be a level of corruption that would surprise even me, just slightly.
And the other good news is another follow-up to a story that has been percolating for several years, and we've done several stories about it because it's so insane. And to give you a little bit of backstory, laws can have annotations. So, law firms, these things go to court, and and they make annotations to the law. It's like, oh, here's how this was interpreted, and and that's kind of considered, but not by the book, part of the law. But when a future judge looks at it, they're going to read the annotations. So, kind of part of the law. Yeah. Now, in Georgia, they said, oh, no, we wrote that. So that's our copyright. You have to pay us to get to that. And people were like, but it's the law. You have to tell us what the law is if you're going to put us in prison for breaking it.
If you're going to try to enforce it.
Yeah, and they said, no, I don't think so. And so we finally have a ruling.
Georgia's copyright loss at the high court could jolt many states. This is the Supreme Court. And the most fascinating thing about this is the Supreme Court split. It was 5-4. This is another one like sort of by the skin of their teeth. The dissenting judges said, yeah, this is extra information. You don't really need this because if you were practicing law or had other knowledge, it would be fine. Somebody has put work into compiling this. But the majority judges said, no, the way that they're using this is actually part of the law, but also the people that wrote this, most of them were on the taxpayer payroll, so you can't copyright that.
Georgia's not the only state that does this. And because this is a Supreme Court decision, it's going to affect all those other states. So will people annotate the laws from now on, knowing that they can't benefit from it?
I do like the part of the ruling where it was like, look, this was produced with taxpayer dollars. It should belong to the taxpayers because it's not like somebody invested a bunch of money in developing this.
So that's it for the good news. On to the...
And that's all bad news.
Well, this isn't necessarily bad news. I guess a lot of people on both sides of the fence on this one, right?
Yeah.
I'd say you have the defenders and the torches and pitchforks. But as we learned, Amazon, even though they're killing it right now, they got into a little bit of trouble because the Wall Street Journal said, hey, we did a little investigative reporting and you're using your third-party seller data to shut them out of the market with your Amazon Basics line. You're figuring out what sells and then selling that. And they said, maybe a little bit. But that's not what they said originally. And that's a problem.
Senator John Hawley calls for a criminal antitrust probe into Amazon. The Republican urged the Attorney General to make the move on Tuesday. So, yeah, this has to do with Amazon Basics. We've reported on it before. There's not really anything new here other than there's some incensed senators that perhaps are looking for donations.
In fact, there is something new.
Amazon's Jeff Bezos has been called to testify before the House antitrust panel. Past statements to Congress may have been misleading and possibly criminally false or perjurous.
That's going to cost him some money.
Right now, he's making so much money with everything else shut down that I just don't think he cares.
Perjury.
He's like smoking a cigar.
That's a finable charge, right?
I mean, that couldn't possibly cost more than $100 million.
But I mean, you would never go to jail for that. That's not what that was designed to do. So yeah, we'll see. They're saying, hey, you can come in and chat with us, or you can be subpoenaed. So,
do you think he'll ask him to use Zoom? Let's just do a Zoom meeting.
You think he'll actually go there, or will he do it remotely?
He'll probably do it remotely. Busy man.
That'll be useful because the lawyers can be like right off screen teleprompting the entire time.
Like a marker and a card off screen. Yeah. And it's like, I don't remember.
It'd be funny to watch that, see how many times he asks them to repeat themselves while the lawyers are furiously scribbling. Well, the whole crisis has kind of moved into the how are we going to track everybody phase. I think we're kind of getting to the point where we understand that it's not going to wipe us all out as predicted, but it's not also going to go away immediately as predicted.
It's also perhaps a lens into the future where something more severe comes along. We're definitely all going to die.
Or if this just lingers. There's no guarantee that it could just be more of this ongoing.
It's like the pack of lions encircling the zebras. It's like they didn't kill us all, but they killed all of the old and feeble zebras every year.
So what are we going to do about it? Well, the powers that be feel that we should all be tracked. But there's a lot of differing opinions on how to do that. Here in the U.S., we've maybe taken one of the worst approaches to it in terms of the government, and that is to make a deal with the devil.
A U.S. Senator wants to know which federal authorities are using Clearview AI to track the thing that's happening that I accidentally said last time. We didn't get dinged. That was nice. We flew under the radar, so I guess that's good.
I do like bleeped it out in some cases. He missed like one, but he got most of them and just put a bleep sound over it.
Oh, I didn't even realize he did that.
It was really funny.
That's amazing. So I think this headline is a little misleading because Clearview, they have the face tracking AI, which maybe could be done, like maybe could be used for contact tracing, but it's dubious. But the Clearview people have said, oh yeah, we'll repurpose our tool to do contact tracing. Anybody want to give us some money to do that? And so this senator is like, wait a minute, what's going on? Let's cut past the marketing fluff. Is anybody actually using this? Does it actually work for content tracing? What's going on?
It's not clear whether or not this would be part of the facial recognition thing, but you would think. What else did they bring to the table?
Yeah, or, well, I mean, the resources of Palantir.
Well, that's different.
Yeah, it's different.
Because, well, I think Trump went to Palantir, right?
Yeah.
But then we're also working with Clearview.
All roads lead to Sauron.
Yeah, pretty disturbing.
We need someone to go throw some jewelry into a volcano.
And I got to say, between the YouTube comments and then, interacting with some of the people on Twitch, it seems maybe the majority is with the, anti-lockdown crowd at this point. At least for our audience, who are, they're fringe.
I don't know. Maybe it's because the people that live in Kentucky are all in really terrible health, but we're losing a lot of people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of people are at that point where they're like, you know what, I really don't care. So,
I mean, I get it. I'm fatigued of it too.
There are some arguments, to be made in either case. I don't think there's anything definitive enough to say, no, really, this is the best way to go. I think we just have to keep debating it and observing it. But with all these tracing apps, the one thing about them is, what did we learn? That 80% of the smartphone population has to use them or they probably won't be effective.
Yeah.
So that makes this headline a little disturbing.
Half of Americans won't trust contact tracing apps, a new poll finds. Respondents trust public health agencies, but not tech firms with their data.
Count me into that group that doesn't trust.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't trust either of them.
That data is never going to be deleted, and it's going to be totally used for other purposes other than the purpose for which it was collected.
It's going to go on your Clearview profile.
Yeah.
It's going to be your face, your driver's license, your license plate, and whether or not you had the thing.
Oh, man, we can look it up by your passport ID. Wait, what?
And if you get swabbed, I'm sure your DNA will get popped right in there.
I guess I would be more willing to engage with the anti-lockdown crew if they were willing to wear a mask. And it's like, no, I must not wear a mask. And it's like, well, how do you feel about clothes?
Yeah. It's such a small thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put a bandana on. It's like, no.
I refuse to wear pants.
Yeah.
We probably... See, the thing is, people... And I have a lot of this in me, too. It's just like, don't tell me what to do, In this situation, I'm able to logically overcome that by oh, okay, well, this doesn't really hurt me and it could be beneficial. But maybe we should have approached it differently and tried to start this as a fashion trend. Get the influencers to mask up and sell really expensive masks with the tags on them.
Disney's already doing that. Have you seen that?
No. What are
They're selling kid masks with their characters on them for $50 on their store.
Did you see Cuomo, the governor of New York?
Yeah.
His mask wall?
No.
He's got a wall?
So listen to this. They talked about, they're like, we don't have enough masks. Here in New York, where it's the epicenter of the crisis, we need masks. So people all across the country made homemade masks and mailed them in. And they're like, here, I want to donate these masks to your emergency workers. Please use these. And he was so impressed by that and so overtaken that in honor of those people, he thumbtacked thousands of the masks to a giant wall and displayed them on TV.
They were taken down after and sent to people who could use
with
them,
holes
right?
in them. I don't even know if they did that. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if they gave them out. They nailed them to a wall.
We got so many, we just don't even need these.
But I noticed when I was looking at the wall, several of them had copyright stuff on them, like there were Batman masks and stuff like that. And I was like, I wonder if one of the Warner Brothers lawyers was like, maybe we should, and the other people are like, no, we shouldn't.
No.
We definitely shouldn't. I like where you're going with it, but no.
What they didn't say was the only ones they nailed to the wall were the ones that smelled like feet.
I mean, you can wash them.
Oh yeah, I guess like what if someone was a smoker and they made a bunch of masks?
Yeah.
They mail them to you, and it's like, oh.
Get the UV bot fired up.
I mean,
Anyway.
yeah, you can just wash them. But anyway.
Speaking of tracing apps, every country is doing it a little bit differently, but there's two main schools, as we talked about. There's the government approach, and there's the giant tech company approach. And the big difference is centralization. The government approach wants to send all the data back to the government, and they search through it and compile it and tell you if you've been infected or exposed to infection. The big tech company approach is to never send data anywhere, leave it on your phone, but sort of peer-to-peer sees like, oh yeah, you were near that person, and then give you an alert that way. And that way it's kind of your little secret. Do we really believe that? I don't know, but at the face of it, that's what it is. And different countries, as I say, are looking at different ways and sometimes flip-flopping.
Germany flips to Apple-Google approach on smartphone contact tracing. Now, last week we reported Germany said, no, this is too invasive, blah, blah, blah. Germany, given its history, making lists of people, I could see how they would be sensitive to that. But they're looking at what Google and Apple are doing and saying, we could probably do this because it does actually seem to preserve some privacy if it's implemented as they say.
Now, this is partly because of that, but also partly because of some issues they ran into with Apple, who will not give you Bluetooth permissions when the phone is not active. So you can't just leave it in your pocket and get full coverage. Now, a lot of the different countries and stuff came to Apple and they were like, hey, give us this. And Apple was like, no.
Like France. We reported on France.
We have a better solution. Just use our solution. You're stupid. And some countries are like, okay, fine. Ours doesn't work. We'll use yours. Other countries, on the other hand, a different approach.
The National Health Service has rejected the Apple-Google plan for doing the thing. So, yeah, sorry. If you're in the UK, I guess it's going to be real bad. I don't know.
Now, of course, they were asked, what about this limitation with Apple devices about the Bluetooth? I mean, there's a lot of Apple devices out there. And they were like, we figured it out. And they're like, oh, what did you do? And they're like, no, it's fine. Don't worry.
Fast forward to the
we didn't figure it out.
Yeah, the Level 1 news 3 weeks from now was like, oh yeah, no, we don't got it.
So they're going to go forward with it, and it isn't just countries themselves, but also giant cancerous entities on the world that are doing their own version of it. And this might be the third and worst option of all of them.
The new United Nations social distancing app doesn't even work. So it has these functions like, oh, you're close to somebody. That doesn't work. Maybe you need to make notes about the people around you. That doesn't work either. Literally, the application is broken.
They tested it in several different ways. And first of all, it doesn't care what kind of Bluetooth it is. How many Bluetooth beacons are there in this office?
About 1,000.
It would catch all of them. But even then, it doesn't reliably catch all of them. Sometimes it just doesn't see them.
Those are too old. That's like a Raspberry, the original Raspberry Pi being a Bluetooth beacon, and it just doesn't even work.
Oh, well, certainly people aren't walking around with old phones. That would never happen.
No, you buy one every year.
Especially old people who are most likely to be sick and infecting us all.
If they could get a cordless rotary phone, they would.
It is true with the old people thing. So when I passed the pharmacy yesterday, everyone was wearing masks. But then I see one old guy who's probably in his 60s walking out, no mask. He wipes his nose and then puts his sunglasses on his face. And I was like, oh.
Maybe he just hates himself. Maybe he's looking for the end.
I have noticed that people that are, because allergy season is happening now, and there are people that are like, no, I don't know if I have the thing or if it's just allergies. Oh.
Yeah, I woke up with a sinus headache today, and I was like, oh no, is this the Rona?
Yeah.
I don't think it's the Rona.
It's any little symptom now strikes fear in your heart.
Yeah.
It gives you just the tiniest glimpse into what it must have been like during the Black Plague.
Yeah.
Where like just anything wrong with you and you're like, oh God, this is it.
Oh no, my one toe is red and swollen. Wait, that's where I dropped the peanut butter jar on
it. So a lot of stuff is shut down, but government agencies are still doing things. And of course the military, they never sleep and they're always working toward more dominance, especially in a time when, the socio-political world is kind of in upheaval because who knows who's going to come out of this first and get the head start. Looks like it might be those dirty red commies. And what are we going to do about it?
Space Force is developing a weapon system to block Chinese and Russian satellites. So I have a feeling this is they don't really talk about it, but I have a feeling this is based on that one satellite that we learned where it piloted into place, piggybacked on the one satellite, and it's like, ta-da, it's got new fuel.
No, this is ground-based.
Oh, they just hit it with lasers?
I don't know exactly what they do to it. Like you said, I don't think they revealed it, but they did mention that it was mobile. So you could take it to different locations and attack the satellites.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess it is some sort of beam or signal. They also said it worked from a range of temporary to permanent. I don't know how you permanently destroy a satellite from the ground. That seems pretty powerful.
Big lasers. If we have lasers that powerful, then Air Forces are no longer relevant either.
Maybe it might need a lot of exposure, like a long exposure time to it that wouldn't work with airplanes, but I guess with a good tracking system it could. Well, the government also, never let a crisis go to waste, and they are banging away at our freedoms at a record pace because we're locked in our homes and we can't do anything about it. One of those freedoms, as always, is encryption. But we learned something interesting about the biggest cheerleader for anti-encryption.
Documents reveal the FBI had defended encryption for WhatsApp before becoming a fierce critic. Christopher Wray defended encryption in 2015 as a lawyer, contradicting his current opposition to the practice.
Now, this comes from...
His mind?
Say what?
That I wonder what changed his mind.
Well,
Probably money.
Money. In the first place, that was his excuse. He was like, hey, I'm a lawyer. I believe whatever my client believes. And that's kind of the way it's supposed to be. You have to sort of admit that. But here's the crazy thing about it. This is from the NSO WhatsApp case. So he used to be a lawyer for WhatsApp with this law firm before he got into the government. That same law firm has pivoted away from WhatsApp. Now they're representing NSO. And WhatsApp is saying, what the conflict of interest? No, you can't do this. And that's where all these documents came from.
Oh, we've got to talk about the NSO group, though. We've got other stories about that because it's exciting.
And back in the day, actually back in the 80s, when computers were just this mysterious new thing and very few people understood them, we started to learn about hacking. And it got to the point where it was a big enough issue that we had to make laws about it. But the world has changed a bit since then. However, we're still working off of those old laws, and some people are trying to change them.
There's finally a Supreme Court battle coming over the nation's main hacking law. This is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is what they're talking about. That's the Aaron Swartz thing. It's like where the prosecutors were coming down hard and fast on Aaron Swartz for, of all things, sharing a whole bunch of academic journals from behind a paywall, which drove him to suicide, which is just ridiculous. So the Supreme Court is probably going to look at the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, not in the context of the Aaron Swartz thing, but just something as pedestrian as when you sign up to a thing online and in their terms of use it says you'll give them your real name and you give them a made-up name. Is that okay?
It's not. And a lot of times when someone finds security issues by doing research as that fake person, rather than just fixing the security issue, they come after the researcher.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing they're trying to fix.
Shoot the messenger!
Seems like a good idea. Over at the EPA, now we've got a lot to say about Mr. Musk in the business section.
I can't keep a straight face.
A lot of people will comment. It's like, why didn't you talk about X? Well, it's in different sections. So yes, we're going to talk about Musk. But
if you're that excited for the news, I suggest you sign up on Patreon or Floatplane.
For $1, you can find it out immediately. But the EPA has been testing his products. Now, he was very proud to have the first 400-mile range electric car. And the EPA says, hold on there.
The EPA denies Elon Musk's claim over the Tesla Model S range test. Musk says that the testers left the keys in the car and the door open overnight, which sapped some of its range. But the EPA says, nope, that's not the case.
The door open, though, like that.
It is kind of... it's 391 is the number.
Yeah. 391 versus 400.
9 miles, I guess, 9 miles is a decent amount, but it's close. However, not the 400 mark.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But also, is nobody talking about how disturbing it is that Elon Musk is like, let me just pull up the syslog on your car real quick, and it's like, oh yeah, no, you left the door open. That seems a little handsy, a little possessive.
I imagine you agreed to that when you bought the car.
Do you think that's what he does all day?
Yes.
Like now that he's in quarantine, he's just reading
As
everyone's
evidenced
logs.
by his Twitter, that is exactly what he does every day.
He definitely has too much time on his hands. Equal pay is a big issue in the world, especially in the tech world, because arguably there is no gender gap in terms of performance when it comes to technology. You know, it's not like we're hauling rocks or anything over here. So why is the pay different? Well, that goes to court constantly, and the newest entry is Oracle.
Oracle women score major win in court battle over equal pay. So California judge has certified a class action lawsuit against Oracle. There's like 4,000 people in this case. Might be a bad time for Oracle.
You know what? One thing in another direction here. Did you know, and I find this to be completely unfair, in esports, there are women's leagues.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
But women can enter the main league. Men cannot enter the women's league.
Huh. In esports.
I don't understand that.
In esports.
That's interesting.
But I do wonder. So I remember, I think with Overwatch League, when they first started getting like females entering that, some of the coaches started getting pissed because they're like, we have to pay for a separate dorm room for the girl. And it's like, really? Like, maybe that's why they're separate, but that seems stupid to me. They should be the same.
But no, they can. Well, see, that's the individual teams. Nothing is barring you from entering the league. So that's more of a private versus public thing. But men cannot be a part of the women's leagues. That is part of the rules. So, interesting. And again, there's nothing separating the sexes there. It's a mouse and a keyboard. Come on. Krista wipes the floor with us at Overwatch. She's terrible at all the other shooters, but for some reason.
Yeah, I am terrible. I panic spray too much when we played PUBG. Me and Wendell both kind of shot each other a lot by accident.
Yeah, I remember.
It's like, you said you were in the field. You didn't say you were in the house. And you changed clothes 5 times.
I'll be like, oh, someone's in here, and then we would just shoot each other back.
It's made me rethink my entire apocalypse plan.
Yeah. Well, my plan is just to, bunker up, start a garden, trade with the warlord, roving bands of bandits.
Well, you're lucky because in your apocalypse plan, you won't have to worry about teaching your children. Because it turns out that people really don't like trying to teach their own horrible little spawn. I think it's an important lesson to them. But when it comes to online learning and doing everything remotely, it is not playing out like anyone thought it would.
Wall Street Journal reports that some school districts plan to end the year early and call remote learning too tough. Georgia and other states waived the minimum instruction time requirements during the thing that's happening, which I can probably say.
I don't know about all of Georgia, but like depending on where you are, I bet they have the same problem we do, where if you go even like 10 minutes outside of town, there's no internet.
Yeah,
so if you're like a student who lives out there, how are you supposed to do all your online coursework?
So I think they had something like 6% who they just haven't seen since they went remote. Like nobody knows where these kids are. They do give you a hotspot to just take to your house, but there's a certain percentage who don't even have a laptop available to them.
Again, a lot of my family, they don't even bother with computers because they're like, I can't get internet out here anyway. Just going to use my phone.
But it's not just that. They also said that they couldn't keep the kids focused and the work was terrible and they just couldn't corral them digitally. And the teachers themselves found that they had so much to deal with during the quarantine with their own children that it was just impossible to try to do both things. So,
if only the parents would help.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, the parents. Yeah.
They've discovered that they're all idiots. So, and it raises the question, let's say this persists for a while and we get some kids who go through some really formative years without school. Do we get a generation of idiots or do we get a generation of free thinkers? Or a combination?
Probably a
little
combination.
column A, a little column B.
Is that ultimately better for the world or worse? That's the question.
We're going to have a whole generation of people who are essentially homeschooled. Oh, no.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, isn't it?
Yeah.
ICANN decided that even though they represent the public, they were going to sell the .org domain. And they're a nonprofit, except they were going to make a bunch of money off of it and generate a bunch of debt. And that was kind of weird. and it almost flew under the radar. But some big names got in there, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And it seems to have worked.
ICANN finally halts the $1.1 billion sale of the .org registry, saying it's the right thing to do after months of controversy.
It's the right thing to do after someone basically told us they were going to investigate us if we did it.
Man, if somebody had noticed this with Toys R Us, we would still have Toys R Us.
Something tells me Toys R Us might not have survived the current.
With everything being shut down.
They don't play with toys the same way anymore.
You know, I ate a bag of Cracker Jacks the other day, and the toy is just so let's just like go online. I was like, what?
It's going to be malware for your phone. What a good toy.
Really, that's terrible. I wasn't expecting a toy, but
when my younger cousins were still playing with Barbies, I would buy them one, and like it has like a little thing on the box. It's like, download this app and you can do like virtual dress up for your Barbie. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of sad.
Wasn't there one of those where Barbie was listening?
Oh, I'm sure there were Barbies like that too.
Yeah. Well, another instance where this was probably done because they wanted to do it during a time when everybody was busy with something else. Although it kind of backfired because everybody had time to watch these now. But UFOs, that's important to point out that UFOs don't immediately mean aliens. You can't make that logical leap. It's just unidentified. But UFOs are real. We now know. We can say it with conviction.
Pentagon formally releases 3 Navy videos showing unidentified aerial phenomena. Yeah, I don't know. The Navy spent a long time analyzing not just this video, but also telemetry from their very high resolution and high precision radar system. And they concluded it was not commercial aircraft, and it was not balloons, and also it moves weird. Like, it definitely couldn't have had a human being on board because it stops and starts so quickly that human beings would have died.
And clearly from the chatter from the pilots in these videos, this is nothing like anything they've encountered before because they're just blown away by it. And they're having a real good time with it, which I think is interesting.
Well, the whole reason the pilots were scrambled is because the things were picked up on radar in the first place. And I was like, that's weird. These things are moving in a very strange way. One of the bits of data suggests that it moved at like Mach 30 or Mach like 30 or 50 times the speed of sound, and then just stopped immediately right over the surface of the water. How does this thing do that? How does the thing not have that, like moving that fast, not have more inertia than that?
It's probably Huawei technology.
Can you imagine if one of the powers on Earth has that type of drone technology? There's like not any kind of outward propulsion, and infrared's not showing like rocket fumes or anything. So,
if that is the case, I can't imagine it's a nation because I don't think that they could keep it secret that long.
Stealth bomber.
This would have to be like a James Bond-esque criminal enterprise who's just waiting to take over the world. Interesting, though.
Korean.
You think Kim Jong, who's apparently
Definitely.
alive?
I also heard that, but I watched the video clip and I was like, this could be from any time.
You think they're deep faking him?
They could be. Actually, they could be. Wow.
Such a great rabbit hole. Well, Broadcom is one of these chip makers who kind of goes to their business partners and just pushes them right over that barrel and has their way with them. And what can you do? You need their chips. Well, what you can do is you can go to the EU and cry about it and get something done.
Broadcom offers to scrap exclusivity deals to end EU antitrust probe. U.S. chipmaker Broadcom has offered to scrap its exclusivity deals with TV and modem makers and an end to end the EU antitrust investigation and stave off possibly hefty fine. I think if this is something that Broadcom has negotiated, it's brilliant. You can go into the market and be like, all right, give us a whole bunch of money, and we will be the only person that we sell to. And so, okay. And then the competitor complains, and it's like, well, we can just stop doing that. And if the EU is like, okay, that sounds good, it's a win-win for Broadcom.
Why is it a win for them? They're making a ton of money doing that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like Broadcom is going to make an insane amount of money no matter what happens. Like with the exclusivity deal or without, they still make money.
It does look good. I mean, it looks good. It's like, oh, people want us this badly.
Well, there's nobody else. I mean, you got to deal with, things get, and then the Huawei, it's like, oh, we can't touch Huawei.
Now, the reason they're backing down from this is that's that new EU threshold where it's 10% of your net. Yeah, that's a tough fine. So they're like, okay, maybe not. Maybe we won't do this. Meanwhile, we have this kind of terrifying thing that's happening where all of the big countries, the big tech countries, are trying to come to an agreement about this Cloud Act in a way that they're all going to run it, and they can all, like, if someone from Australia wants to come after you in the US, we're going to have that reciprocity. And so there's nowhere to hide. But if you are Australia, you might be working a little hard to stack the deck in your favor. And the big tech companies are saying, wait a minute, we see what you're doing there.
Google wants Australia to remove civil penalties from the Cloud Act readying bill. The search giant believes that the imposition of a mandatory obligation to comply with international production order is contrary to the purpose of the Cloud Act. So, yeah. Basically, Google could, Australia is looking at what's going on in Europe. And they're like, man, we could get in on some of that sweet, sweet international company money.
But the thing about the Cloud Act is it's not mandatory. So the way Australia's trying to build it is that it would be unidirectional mandatory. So you couldn't go to Australia and be like, you must give us this. It's the law. But their law says they can come to you and say, you must. If the data is on their soil, then they could make it mandatory. So, not fair. And those of us working from home, it's definitely a new experience. It's a little bit weird. I'm adapting more and more to it. I could see after a reasonable amount of time, it would just be normal, I guess. And in fact, that's what it might become in some places in the world.
German minister backs creating a legal right to work from home. That's impressive. But some people can't work from home. Like, some people just don't have the discipline.
So you have to prove that your job doesn't need to be in the office. And it seems like the workplace could pretty easily argue against that. Or just give you some new requirements. It's like, yeah, you manage the servers, but you also restock the fridge.
We also need you to get cake for the conference room once a week.
We also need you to sit in these meetings where everybody does a lot of talking, but nobody actually gives you any concrete action items. And we guise that under the thing of being productive.
But we did see that some companies were figuring out that the real estate savings were extreme.
Yeah.
So that might make them embrace that more. We'll see. So that's definitely going to be about what's cheapest.
Also, as an aside, the picture they picked for this article makes this guy look like he's a wax figure. It's weird. It's a weird image.
It's deep fake. It's not real. China appears to be, at least for what they're telling us, getting over the thing, moving past it.
But almost universally, no one is like, that's real.
Who knows? And one of the things that might speak against that is how close to their chest they're playing the numbers. They really don't want to share the information. They don't want to let the doctors in. And they really don't like their citizens talking about it. In fact, they've blocked almost every way to talk about it. Now, some enterprising people figured out that you could use an online tool in a way that it wasn't intended to talk about it. It didn't go well for them.
Chinese internet users who uploaded memories of their experiences experiencing the thing that's really horrible going on right now to GitHub have been arrested. It's like, oh, you uploaded some stuff to GitHub to document what your experiences were? Well, that's a disappearing.
Yeah, so there were a couple of different GitHub repos that were, and so you just went in and you would submit your memoirs about what happened. And they weren't fans of that. And so the law is picking quarrels and provoking trouble. That's a little broad.
Yeah.
And nobody's heard from those people for a while. Unfortunate. Moving on to social media. Social media is definitely one of those businesses that is benefiting from everybody being locked down. We depend on them more than ever to communicate, and Facebook's numbers reflect that.
Facebook apps now used monthly by more than 3 billion people. So they get their first quarter, second quarter numbers in. I forget. All the quarters are running together now. They get their numbers in. From last year, they had billions of dollars more this year than last year. Facebook is killing it revenue-wise. And that is very sad and also makes me weep for the future of humanity.
Now, that is all of the apps put together, all of their holdings.
But
Instagram too. I mean, that would probably be a major part of it.
Yeah, WhatsApp. So yeah, that's a big part of the population, isn't it?
yeah,
What
And
do
when
the
you think
influencers take pictures of now?
When you subtract the part of the population who is not online, you're probably getting real close to 50% there.
probably more than that.
You think?
Yeah, probably like 60.
Terrifying. What are you people thinking? And WhatsApp only becomes more powerful because you got to give them credit. They identify what's missing in a market that they're in, and they give the people that in exchange for all their data, and it is super successful. But man, don't do it. Don't do it, India.
WhatsApp eyes lending feature in India as Amazon rolls out pay later to tens of thousands of customers. So yeah, WhatsApp pay later. I mean, those things go together, right? Like a lending feature built into my WhatsApp app. I mean, that just seems crazy. Like that doesn't those things don't go together. That application was not meant to do that.
Now, the Amazon version, the WhatsApp version isn't out yet, but the Amazon version, I think it just works on Amazon, but also I guess you can do like payments through Amazon. So you go on there and you're like, I want this, and they're like, how are you going to pay for it? And you're just like, don't just ask me next month. I'll pay it next month. And they're like, okay, fine. So they lend you the money, and there's no interest if you pay them when you say you're going to. And then after that, you start getting an interest rate. Guess what? Did you read the credit limit?
It's like $5.
Well, so based on like my credit card, I think is what, like $9,000. I have a pretty good credit score. I'd say the average is probably what, 5 or 6. In India, $264. But I'd say that goes a long way in their economy.
With billions upon billions of dollars, yeah. I mean, just
Yeah, it's a lot of people doing that. And another thing about India is Donald Trump's relationship with them. It kind of ebbs and flows. Recently, it was at a peak. They were having a good time. India was doing stuff that he liked, and it was going well. And like a teenager, he rewarded them in a very teenager-like way. But now, perhaps it's on the rocks.
3 weeks on, the White House unfollows Prime Minister Modi on Twitter. So this is in India today. It took me a second to do this. The White House doesn't really follow, the White House Twitter account doesn't really follow any other political figures. The White House Twitter account was then following these people in India, not just the Prime Minister, but also
Like his entire inner circle.
yeah. And then now they're not following them. But it was, for 2 or 3 weeks there. But it was weird because the White House account doesn't really follow anybody else.
13 total follows on their account.
Yeah. So
And this was after they did something that I can't remember exactly what it was, but they did some things that that Trump liked. So the question is, was this dictated from above?
oh yeah, it definitely was.
Make sure they know that they're out. Unfollow them on Twitter.
I'm like, sir, that's going to look petty. We probably shouldn't do that. Let's do it now. Now.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this is the one you alluded to earlier. It sounds worse than it is. Because at first, this sounded like one of the most draconian, evil things that Disney's ever done. And I realize what a high bar that is. They did clarify it. So it's not quite that, but it's still pretty disgusting.
Disney claims media rights to all the May the 4th replies in one tweet. It was the first tweet was like, hey, do you want to participate in this May the 4th thing? And then the reply to that was, if you do that, you're giving up your firstborn child and a number of other things. Disney termsofuse.com.
This is a great image. They took the text of the tweet and put it in the crawl. So yeah, if you reply to Twitter or to Disney Plus on Twitter on this tweet and use this hashtag, they reserve the rights to use your tweet in advertising material or ever how they want it. But the question is, can you set terms of service through a tweet? I don't think that's been legally tested.
It's Disney.
Oh, yeah.
Disney already owns everything, so I'm
you're
sure
never
they
gonna-
can make it work.
You're never going to fight them.
They've altered the deal. Pray they don't alter it any further.
Now, people originally thought this meant any May the 4th tweet hashtag would be taken, which would have been quite an overstep. But no, they clarified it's only if it's a reply to this tweet. Now, what if I reply to this tweet in reply of another tweet, and that gets caught up in the net.
Or you reply that you decline.
A lot of people are going to
Oh,
do that.
I heard some people were like tweeting terrible things to Disney.
There were
So
a
that
couple.
way, you know.
There were a couple things that people managed to get taken down. Like one guy posted a screenshot of the tweet, and Disney like DMCA'd that or something if what I read was accurate.
Wow.
What a solid company.
And they clearly don't care about the public relations side of it.
No,
It's all about just legal lockdown control.
it's like the whole Nintendo thing, and it's like we will control the narrative, and it's like Nintendo. Sometimes people are just going to stream your games. Like that's the thing.
No, they won't.
Yeah,
We will destroy them.
yeah.
But it's sadly, all of the Star Wars freaks will happily jump to this
Yeah.
and give it credence.
Oh,
What they should be doing is lambasting them for destroying this thing that they loved.
I see quite a bit of that online.
Yeah, but I think you're probably looking on Reddit, which is, weighted toward that crowd. Reddit likes to hate
Fair.
things.
Well, I've also seen like YouTube reviews, but they also probably get more traction on hate pieces than.
You know what I see? Billions of dollars going into the Disney coffers from the Disney name, or the Star Wars name.
And that's all they cared about.
That's all they've ever cared about.
I mean, honestly, I'd probably be all I cared about too if I was in that position.
Listen, Walt Disney's cryogenic equipment gets more expensive to operate every year.
It's they're allowed to lose a certain number of neurons per year, and if not, they have to increase the cooling power, and the children's blood that they pump into it has to be increased.
All right, what do we got for tomorrow?
Tomorrow's gonna be business, and whatever the next smallest one is, probably robot. No, it's probably security.
Not really. I mean, all things considered, not really a lot of news going on right now.
The business news I felt like got more normal than usual. More normal stories, less about the thing.
Well, if businesses can adapt, they have adapted. And if they have not adapted, they're probably not coming back.
Some stories about a business is not adapting.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, you
cut out. Well, thanks,
you
Linode.
cut out. You do it again.
Thanks again, Linode. Check out those links.
Oh, it's terrible. All right. Well, you're going to get a truncated bye this week. I'm sorry.